All right, here we go.
Take 72.
Marker. Well, welcome back to Table Talk. This is episode 4.
Woo!
We made it.
4 of 7,036.
Yep. People are still watching.
Still watching.
2 of them.
Keep it coming, fans.
That's great. We are kind of talking about things that have got left on the chopping block according to our sermon series that we've been in. And so if you're watching in your car, hopefully you're not watching in your car, but if you're watching on YouTube,
very dangerous.
Yeah, don't do that. You shouldn't do that. But if you're listening to a podcast or you're in a group or you're watching wherever you're watching, thanks for tuning in. And today we're going to be talking about our series we've been in called Unlikely Heroes.
Yep.
And really at the end of the day, we're talking about leadership, right? How to be a good leader. Are you a leader?
Yeah. Well, we defined it that way. We defined a hero as someone who is a leader. And by that, we define it as someone who takes you to a place you've never been before.
Right.
And that's why we love our heroes. We need heroes because we see lack in our own life, or we can't overcome things in our own life. And so they do that for us. And they're unlikely in the Bible because they're just like you and I.
Yeah.
The amazing thing about this series was that any one of us can be a leader. Any one of us can help somebody get to a place they couldn't get to on their own. And that makes you an unlikely hero, which I love.
Love it. Love it. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And we're going to kind of dive right in. We got a few questions today we're going to talk through. But the first question is, what does it mean to lead? And I love this question because, Bill, you're probably one of the best leaders of all time.
We're $20
Yeah,
an hour?
I got my money that
Okay.
we're no. The truth is, all jokes aside, we actually did move. We quit our jobs with a 1-year-old and started attending this church and randomly showing up to staff meetings until you hired us for 8 months. I'm just reliving this all right now in my mind because of one of the things that you're, in my mind, one of the greatest leaders that I know. So I don't mean that just to prop you up, but for me, I love this question of leadership. What does it mean to lead? What makes you, and what have you found, has been the things that have really defined you as a leader, and maybe even as it relates to some of the things you've been learning and we've been learning with these unlikely hero characters. So the question is, what does it mean to lead?
Wow, I did not expect that or anticipate that because, it's funny. I don't think you ever think of yourself maybe as, I know I'm a leader, but maybe not at that place. But it's an interesting question because I admire so many great leaders, and I've always wanted to be the kind of person who does take someone to a place that they can't find on their own. And so, even on Sunday, I just talked about some of my own heroes, like my mom, for anyone out there listening who feels like, man, your life has been unfair and you've been handed, a raw deal. And my mom grows up in a home that's alcoholic and abusive, and yet she breaks free from all of that. And she's resilient and she's a fighter, and I love that about her. And my dad, there are things that I needed to see, and someone needed to model it for me. So I guess the reason I do what I do is I just want to model for others that you can do this. Yeah. And I've always wanted to inspire people with what they can do, what their potential is and their possibility. And so it's funny. I guess I've never thought of it in that context. But I think great leaders are simply those who have a great idea and are able to inspire others to go for that idea.
Yeah.
I don't know how to articulate it any other way, but
yeah. Well, and I think what's great about you, and this is something I think about a lot, is great leaders. They start by leading themselves, right? And for you, that's, I see that in you, and just in the small things. It's I think I even think of back to 20 years ago when we first met in school, or when you were my first prof, and we talk. You would always talk about this idea of like, if I could just impact 10 people. And, when 10 people, they know you, like they know your flaws, they know all, and you recognize, I think very early, that leading yourself is just so important, so.
Well, when what happened for me was when I was 17 years old, I was kind of on a bad trajectory. I was hanging out with, a bunch of friends at high school and stuff, and we were not going in a good place. And I didn't want that for my life, and I didn't want that actually for their life. And I realized that if I was going to be able to help people, I had to get there first. Yeah. I think we've been using this idea of leaders create a pathway for others to follow, and you have to get there first. Like I can't lead you to a place that I've never been to. Yeah. And so if I wanted my kids, for example, to be open-minded, I had to be open-minded. I think this is the great fault of a lot of parents. They just they expect their kids to somehow
believe what I say.
Yeah.
Right.
And they can't, you can't lead somebody to a place. So if you've never experienced true freedom in your life, you can't lead others into freedom.
Yeah.
If you've never experienced forgiveness, you can't lead others to forgiveness.
Right.
And I think that's a major problem that people don't understand. You got to get there first. And I know that greatness is a mountaintop. It really is, and it's uphill all the way.
Yeah.
And you just have to be willing to do whatever it takes to get there first, and then hopefully you can turn around and say, "Hey, you can do this too."
Yeah.
I think there's two kinds of leadership. The world's idea of leadership is, you follow me, either because I'm amazing and awesome and you should, or because you can do something for me.
Right.
And I don't think that's true leadership. That's manipulation. I love this story, and I've used it before. It's a story of a tour bus, and they're in Israel. And the tour guide's going on about how in Israel, they're different than shepherds anywhere else in the world, because in other parts of the world, like Scotland, the shepherd goes behind and pushes the sheep with dogs and all that. But in Israel, all the sheep, follow the shepherd's voice. He goes in front of them. And so everyone's like, oh, that's amazing. And they come around this corner, and there's a group of sheep, but there's this guy with a stick behind them beating them. And the tour guide's like a little embarrassed, so it's awkward. So he gets the bus to stop and pull over, and he yells to the shepherd. He's like, "What are you doing? I just told everybody that in Israel, they lead in the front." And the guy said, "Oh, I'm not the shepherd. I'm the butcher." Right? But here's my point, right? It's this idea that dad joke, boom. But no, here's my point. That there are people who think that leading is manipulating or coercing people to go where you want them to go.
Right.
And I don't think that's true leadership. Leadership is going ahead and having others go, I actually want. So you have to be someone that others want to follow.
Yeah.
And I wrote a couple of ideas around that. I thought it takes authenticity.
Yep.
I think one of the challenges with a lot of people is they're just not self-aware. So if you don't even know who you are and you don't know where you're going, how can you lead anybody? It'd be like, Jesus said, the blind leading the blind. It's this idea that you're blindfolded, stumbling through life, and then you go, come follow me.
Yeah.
To where? So you have to have a clear vision for your own life. You got to lead yourself first. And for me, that meant I knew that I had to really work hard at studying, because I'm not a natural. I'm not studious. And so I had to really work hard at that. I had to work on some of my own emotional baggage, some of the things that triggered me. I had to work on my own discipline. So I get up really early, and everyone's like, "Oh, wow, why do you do that?" Well, it's because when I get up early, I get a lot more done, and I know who I am, and it sets my day right, because I know where I'm going. Right. And the funny thing is, I hate reacting. I love to be proactive. So the sooner I can get a grasp on what I'm doing, then I can invite others into that. And so I think for me, I've experienced incredible freedom in my own life, and I just wanted others to experience that too. I don't know if does that make sense?
No, that's great. Well, and I think I was living in a little bit of that as well the week, I was talking about Moses, and the thing that really stood out to me for Moses is that, there's these three kind of chapters that he goes through, and the first one is he has to reject who he's not.
Right, which I loved. That was a great point.
That's so important, because it's important and easy in the beginning, but I think easy to get stuck in being defined who you're not. I'm not my dad, or I'm not this, or I'm not that. But then to recreate, and I think that's been the one that I've been really trying to change the narrative. Is that I think for a lot of millennials, we're so good at knowing what we're not about.
Right.
We don't like that. We're not religious. We're not this. But for so many of us, it's like, how do you, and not even just us, I think it's a lot of people. It's how do you recreate, who are you then? Like, so it's rejecting who you're not, but then also actualizing, like, who am I? Like, what is my life about? What am I going to spend my life, and then the last part is like, with courage and stamina and resolve, he lives out his days, his last 40 years. But I love that idea of, those three kind of things in terms of being honest and authentic with yourself. So, yeah, the question is, how do you do that? How do you, keep taking steps to being to discovering who are you?
Yeah, well, and I think followers let the expectations of the world form them, and I think that's a major problem. Yeah. So, we talked about these four heroes, and Abraham, he's living a pretty good life in Ur, and he could just be satisfied with that, and he would have been a nobody. We would have never ever heard about him. There were literally hundreds, maybe thousands of other people who lived in Ur at the same time, and we've never heard about any of them. because they were just satisfied living by the expectations and the limitations and the definitions of everyone else around them. He actually decided to step out and be something different. Same with Joseph. Joseph is just, again, a shepherd. It's interesting that in the Bible, a lot of them are just like from the backwater. Like he's from nowhere. He's a desert wanderer. He literally follows the sheep from grassland to grassland. And so his brothers, when he says, hey, I'm going to be a leader, go, you're an idiot. Or you think of Moses, same thing. You know, he's a slave, raised in Pharaoh's court and everything, but all his life he's told, no, you're just a Hebrew slave. Yeah, you're lucky to be this, but you just remember who you are. And he goes, no, there's something more in me. Or God calls it out of him. And then, of course, David, same thing. He's the shepherd, and he says, no, I'm going to be a king. And I think you have to actually believe that it's possible for you first. I mean, and here's the thing. Everybody, and we were talking about this earlier, everybody wants input, but nobody actually wants to lead. Everybody wants the reward, but they aren't willing to take the risk.
Right.
But here's the point. If you want to take people somewhere where they've never been, you have to go where you've never been, and that's terrifying because it means doing things you've never done before. It means stretching yourself in ways that are uncomfortable. It means disciplining yourself, and when it gets really hard, because it's going to be hard. Like, think about the greatest leaders in history. Like, if you are just honest, the people that inspire you, they worked really hard to get there. And they inspired you because they made you believe or helped you believe that something was possible that you didn't think was possible. So Martin Luther King Jr. helps a whole nation believe that, no, you know, we can, as races, coexist and actually thrive together. Gandhi, under the oppression of a British Empire, says, no, actually, we can be free. We're not second-class citizens. You look at great heroes, Winston Churchill, when it looks like everyone's like, give up, the war's over. He's like, no, we can win this. And so I think, you know, whatever area in your life, you know, you need victory. You got to first believe that it's possible, and you have to believe it. It's, you know, I had this phrase written down. Most people say, fake it till you make it. I hate that. I say, believe it till you see it. And it's this idea that, so whatever you're defined as now, are you? If that's you're satisfied with that, then okay.
Yeah, that's great.
But if you want to change it, you can. You can.
Yeah.
And so for me, I just wanted to be somebody who was authentic, and this is the part about experiences. Like you have to go through a lot to experience who you can be.
Yeah, I think about that a lot because you know, I think for some people, maybe even watching, you know, that are going like, I don't even know that I am a leader, right? And I've rejected this notion that like there are people who are leaders and who aren't, because the truth is everyone is leading someone, and I can prove that because you lead yourself.
Correct.
Right? So everyone has to lead themselves, and I think this is the biggest one. Like, this has probably been the one I spent the most amount of time navigating, but feeling like I'm coming through it in some ways as well, is this idea of I believe so many limitations.
Absolutely.
Like, I believed so many ceilings on my life. I believed all of these great things were outside of me, and it's funny. I've read some great things even recently. Carol Dweck, she writes that book Mindset, right? She talks about growth mindset and fixed mindset. And essentially the idea is just that, you know, fixed mindset is that you believe that you'll never be anything more than what you are. You're born this way. It's who you're always going to be. And growth mindset is that you believe that, maybe you weren't born the greatest of all time, but you know that you can work hard and you can get there. You know that there's possibility for you, and just believing like that. There's so much in that. Like, it's not just a self-help thing either. Like, I know you can get there in some type of self-belief, but I think this is where the God part too is so powerful. When you believe that God says you are great. And even in the story of Moses, this was what struck me too, is like, you know, he says, I'm not. And to whatever degree he says, I'm not, God says, I am. You know, I am sent you. You know, if people question you on who do you think you are, you just tell them that I am sent you. So, and anyways, point being that I think, you know, there's something to be said about what you believe and allowing God to be the, you know, to be the ceiling, which is endless.
Well, and I think this is notion of God too. I think a lot of people have this idea that one day a white bearded guy is going to show up and talk to you.
Right.
And that's never happened to me.
Yeah.
So I think God is truth. So whenever you find truth, what is true, then you're actually tapped into God.
Yeah.
Right? Or love, however you want to phrase that. And I think there is this major misconception that leaders are born. I don't believe that. I believe that some people are born naturally more charismatic, more dynamic. Maybe they have more opportunities than others. But I believe true leaders are made. And you look at history. Leaders come from all kinds of backgrounds, stories. Some from, very few come from luxury. Most come through adversity. So leaders are made. And here's you're right. I think we have this idea that a leader is somebody who has thousands of followers on Facebook or Twitter. Right?
Yeah, they're an influencer.
No, but a leader is actually just taking someone to a place they can't go on their own. So, for example, if you're a parent, your job is to lead your children to be functioning adults. That you're a leader. So you have to figure out how to be a functioning adult yourself. And that doesn't mean being perfect. It just means being disciplined enough to figure out, okay, what kind of a life do I want to carve for my child so that they can follow in that? A grandparent, same thing. Or think about it in the workplace. I worked in this place where it was miserable. Everybody was miserable all the time, and they just complained. And I wanted to change that. So I decided to be joyful. And I met a ton of resistance. So I just decided on our busiest nights, I would just go in the back and start singing. And I would sing songs that everyone knew on the radio. And at first everyone's like, shut up, be quiet. And then they all started singing with me. It totally turned. Right. I led them to the place where it's possible, even when it's busy and you're dealing with grumpy customers, that you can still be joyful. Right. So you can do that. Anybody can lead into whatever area. You want to lead into a freedom mindset. Then stop being limited. Go, okay, no, I know this is my current reality, but I can actually change it. And so that's truth. That's God.
Right.
God steps in, truth steps in and says, no, actually, you're not what everyone else defines you as. Right. You're not what your life experiences are. You are more than that, and you can overcome it. So you're right. Broad is the road that leads to destruction, Jesus said, and many are on it. It's the easy path. It's what you were told from the time you were a child. You're a consumer. You have to go to university, you have to get a degree, you have to get married, you have to have 2.2 children, you have to have a white picket fence, you have to live until 65, and you have to have a good retirement plan, and then you retire, and you go to Florida, and you get a suntan, and you die. That's the narrative. That's the broad road. Right. But in there, every once in a while, you see these offshoots, and they're possibilities, and you go, oh, I could write a book. Oh, I could create a business that pursues a passion of mine to help people. I could help this person. Yeah. And you get to make the choice because, man, narrow is the path that leads to life.
That's good.
And so Jesus actually articulated it. And so every once in a while you get these glimpses and you look down that path and you're like, I don't know, man. There's a lot of briars. There's a lot of thistles. There's a lot of branches. It looks rocky over there. Yeah. I don't know if I'm equipped. I don't have the right shoes on, whatever excuse it is. But then the leader goes, I'm going to go and I'm going to cut a swath through that and then hopefully create a pathway for others to follow. Yeah. And anybody can do that. Yeah. You want the world to be more joyful? Be more joyful. You say, well, I'm not like, no. Yeah. Joy is a choice. Peace is a choice. Yeah. Freedom is a choice. I'm tired of a victim mindset because bad stuff happens to everybody. So okay, let's all just therapeutic thought. Right. Bad stuff happens to everybody.
We all die.
And yes, some things are worse than others. Yes. Okay, we agree. Yeah. But what makes people great? Well, how come so many have been able to overcome that? Because they just refuse to be limited by that. And so I think that takes incredible courage. Yeah. I think it takes incredible vision. I think it takes experience. Here's the thing about experience. If you never risk, if you never try, you'll never accomplish anything. Right. But if you risk and you try, you are going to fail. So deal with that. But if you fail, you can either be discouraged or you can learn from it. Right. And when you learn from it, then you can implement it in your life. So here's the process of becoming a leader. Okay? You see something you'd like to go for. You see that path. Take the risk. Take the first step off the path. You don't know where it's going? Nor do I. But you got to take the first step. Right. Are you going to fail? Yes. You're going to step on rock and uneven ground, and you're going to roll your ankles sometimes, and branches are going to hit you in the face. So what are you going to do? Turn around and go back? Or are you going to go, okay, break that branch, smooth that path for someone else to follow? So you learn, and then you implement it. And you say, you give signs for others. This is the greatest leaders. The greatest leaders make markers along the way. Here's how you can experience what I've experienced.
Yeah. And I wonder, too, I wonder for some that have pursued a path, let's say, and have gotten stuck because they failed or whatever. They said, okay, it's almost that fight or flight kind of thing, right? It's like, remind myself never to do that again because look at what happened. I wonder if that's maybe why a lot of people get stuck.
Absolutely.
They go, I didn't, I had this dream of doing something, but I blew out my knee or I failed or whatever. And so they never did it again. And that's the life that they lived, right? So, I like what you said, leaders are born, or they're not born, they're made. So the question is, what stops us from?
Fear.
Yeah.
Fear. It's plain and simple. That's why you need incredible courage. You need to be a little shepherd boy who's willing to stand in front of a giant and go, okay, Goliath.
Yeah.
You need to be Joseph, who's in the darkest prison, abandoned and rejected by everybody, who still thinks he's going to be a leader. Like it doesn't make any sense. You got to be Abraham, who's 100 years old, and you still believe you're going to have a kid, right?
Yeah.
You got to be Moses, who stutters, who's terrified, but says, okay, I'll stand in front of Pharaoh, and I'm going to declare, let my people go. Like, you're right. It's just courage, and courage doesn't mean you feel awesome and you're, man, I'm terrified a lot of time. But it's just believing. It's believing that something more is possible. And so I wrote this. It's like seeing what no one else can see.
Yep.
It's believing when others cannot believe, and it's moving when others won't.
That's good.
It's seeing what no one else can see, believing when others can't, and moving when others won't. And so it's this idea that, you can be a leader.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, you brought it back for me. That's really helpful. I didn't think I never thought I was going to lead thousands or whatever. And I never had any ambition to do that.
Right.
But I just said, if I can help 10 people
Yeah.
further down the path, then that's what I want. And so I had to figure out that path and I'm still figuring that out.
Yeah.
Here's the interesting thing too, is like, I think you go, well, when I get there, then I'll turn around. No,
Right.
no, I'm still on that path, but I've cut hopefully enough of a swath that others can go. Like, I hope that my kids are better equipped than I was, because I created a pathway for them to think openly about themselves and about the world.
Right.
And I think that's what leadership really is. But
That's great. I love it. All right, let's keep going. So another question, we kind of talked about, what makes unlikely heroes great. Refusing to get stuck, believing in something bigger, leading yourself, others with courage. Let's kind of maybe jump to this other question, which is, how can I, the everyday person, how can I be a leader? And maybe even another like offshoot of that is, why is it so important for me to be a leader? Like, sometimes we talk about leaders, leadership, and we happen to be in a great culture where we're always talking about how to be great leaders. But, sometimes, maybe for those that are watching too, like, are going like, why? Like, why do I need to be a leader? And how can I be a leader? We talked a little bit about taking the first step, but what does that look like? If you're really just starting out and you're going like, I don't even know,
well, you got to break the first thing. You got to break the myth that this culture thrives on, and it's all about me. You got to break this myth that actually this whole universe was created for you, and you're the most important thing, and your happiness is supreme. You got to break that myth, because that's just a ridiculous lie. Right. There are billions of people on this planet.
Right, because leadership really is the belief that it's not about you.
Absolutely.
Because it's about others. Leading is actually about leading other people.
That's right. True leaders. So even the twisted leaders in history actually believe that they're helping people get better.
Right.
Like, think about it. Even the dictators.
Even like Hitler thought he was making the world a better place.
He did. His mind was messed up.
Yeah.
But that's why, because he saw Germany in a terrible state and said, I can make this better.
Right.
But that's the first thing. You got to break the myth. Then the second thing is you got to lead yourself. So, for example, if you're always miserable, ask yourself, why am I always miserable? Right. And is this what I want for my life?
Right.
If not, so I am predisposed to negativity and cynicism. That's my disposition. Right. I married a woman who's the opposite. Yeah. And she taught me to wake up every day and go, you know what, today's going to be a great day. Yeah. Regardless of how I felt, I've had to, that's a discipline. Yeah. And I decide that I'm going to, and I have to actually prep myself, in certain scenarios. Like, I'm going to go into this meeting and I'm going to try to be patient and kind and joyful. I don't always succeed, but you got to start by leading yourself. Then third, you got to, and you articulated it well in the Moses sermon. It's, you got to discover what's in your hand. Okay, so where do you work? Yeah. What could you do in that work environment to just move people one step better? Yeah. Whatever that is. If you are passionate about recycling, how could you get them to do that? Right. If you're joyful, how do you get them to be joyful? If it's more efficient, whatever it is, how can you help your work environment? How can you work your home environment? How can you improve your friendships? What's just one step?
And the irony is that thing in your hand is probably your weakness.
Perhaps.
Like in this story, it was a staff, which was represented like the lowest of the like. Well, And then it was like God saying, "Put your hand in your cloak," and then pull it out with leprosy. It was like a death, like a death wish.
Well, but think about it.
So
heroes are people who overcame something that
Yeah.
they struggled with.
Yeah. So
That's a hero.
Yeah.
You had a limitation, you overcame it. That's inspiring. You're a leader.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not very inspiring. It's like, well, yeah, I have black hair. Well, it's kind of gray now, but that's not inspiring because I didn't have to do anything for that. But if I told you, I used to have a real anger problem,
Yeah.
and now I found freedom from that. I have so many, especially men, when I tell them that story, go, man, can you help me figure that out for myself?
Yeah.
So you're right. It's not always what you're naturally gifted
Yeah.
with. It's actually the opposite. It's the thing you overcame.
Yeah. Or even are overcoming,
Or that's even better.
right?
Because I think this is the idea too. Like I think the myth is that you have to be perfect.
Right. Jesus, he wraps it in a nice tidy bow for you.
And you're not perfect.
Yeah.
Nobody is. But you're moving in a direction others go, you know what? I'd like to be like that too.
Yeah. That's
And
good.
and then I think you had to be humble in the process. I think that's really important. That you have to be self-aware. You have to have enough truth tellers around you to tell you when, hey, you're like that path is not good.
Yeah.
And then once you kind of figure it out, you got to create a pathway for others to follow. And this is where I'm at in my stage of life. It's like, how do I create a way for other people to find freedom, not to follow me necessarily, because I always believe, and this is the part where I'm a follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
He's the greatest leader, so I follow him. But how can I help others find that path?
Yeah.
And because all I want for them is honestly, I just want people to win. I really do. And, when I met you, back in college on that first day with your, matted dreads, and I don't know when was the last time you washed your hair, and you're this.
We won't cut to that right now.
You were
Caleb.
this, this. In some ways, I look back and there you had a lot of insecurity. You had a lot of stuff in your life that you had to process, and you just needed somebody in your life to say, you know what, I believe in you. You can do this.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, you've become the man that you are, not because of me, but because you believed it. I just set you on the course to go, no, you can do this. And I think that's all. We all need that. And so you back full circle to your original question, why should anyone be a leader? Because someone's waiting for you to lead.
Yeah. Somebody needs you.
Somebody needs you.
Yeah.
And so this is the biggest frustration with me with North America particularly, is everyone feels like, no one cares about me, no one needs me. Well, then make them need you.
Right.
Like who's stopping you from?
You're not a victim to somebody needing you.
No, who's stopping you from helping someone at a soup kitchen? Who's stopping you from going into a school and helping kids with lunch angels and getting kids who won't get a lunch to get a lunch?
Yeah.
What's stopping you from helping someone across the street? What's stopping you from being kinder and nicer and encouraging? I mean, nothing.
It's true.
So stop letting the limitation, the Goliath in your life, the Pharaoh in your life, the barrenness of your wife. Stop letting the prison that you're in, stop letting that define you. And in all these 4 stories, they just refuse to let the limitation define them. They let God, truth define them. And that's what made them unlikely heroes.
I love that too. And I was thinking as you were even talking about, the idea of, just the humility, that being humble to be teachable in the process, to go like, you never arrive in this. You never arrive as a leader. But there's something about like committing to being humble. There's something about, committing to like just growing in competence. Like, there is an element of like, just do what you do and do it the best you can. Like whatever it's like, if it's your weakness, do that. Like that thing that's in your hand, if it's your kids that you didn't even ask for, some of them, right? Or like you have situation and circumstance, just be faithful with that. And then like, just be trustworthy. Like, do what you say you're going to do. And these are simple principles, but like they're so powerful.
Well, and it could be the simplest thing. I as you were talking, it just triggered a story. When I was in high school, I struggled academically. I barely passed high school. But we had a teacher come my last year, grade 12, and his name was Mr. Young. And I remember him because he was younger, ironically, and he wore sneakers with his suit, which I thought was the coolest thing ever. But what I remember about him was one thing. It's the only thing I remember about him, besides that I thought he was cool.
Right.
And this is probably why I thought he was cool. So one day, we all did these assignments, and it was poetry or something. It was English, and I wasn't very good at that. And so he said, I want to read you like some I got this outstanding assignment. So he reads it out, and everyone's like, oh, that was really good. And they're all guessing, of course, the smart kids, the kids who always, and it wasn't. It was this kid, I won't say his name, but it was a kid that everyone had rejected. Everyone thought was just a druggie, a drughead, a deadhead. And he stands up on his desk, Mr. Young, it's almost like Dead Poet Society, and he says, and this is who wrote this. And it was like, I actually remember looking at this guy, and in that moment, a transformation, a miracle took place right in front of me. Yeah. This kid went from head hanging down, feeling like a loser, everyone treating him like that, to, really, that's me? And I'll never forget that moment. And I remember going, I want to be like that. Yeah. I want to be like that. Yeah. So what he did was he created a little pathway for me, a little glimpse into what could be, and I took it. I said, I want that. So then I thought, okay, what do you have to do? Well, then you have to be an encourager. You just have to go, hey, you know what? You can do this. Yeah. You can do this. And you have to see what other people can't see in others. And so
it's powerful.
So what's powerful about it? This is for everybody. Yeah. This is for everybody. And so I think that's why it's unlikely heroes. Yeah. Everybody can be a leader. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I love it. I think for me, those are some great takeaways. Just that idea for me, like, again, even as you were talking, just one last thought I had was, I think even me at my best is really when I step outside of me and believe that I have value to add to others, to bring people from something, maybe less than to something greater than. Like, even it's funny, we talk about this, even in communicating, even on a Sunday morning, there's something about when you like, actually, it's funny. I learned this from someone, and I'm kind of forgetting who, but just even the physical step that I try to take before I go on stage to go, God, I'm stepping out of me and trying to step into your power to help someone. And me at my best is when it's not about me. Like right. I think that's the thing too, is like leaders who you just feel it when it's about them. I think it's even this like this influencer kind of culture that's like, I want more followers, I want people to look at me. And it's so empty and shallow, and you see through it. Yeah. But the best leaders go, it's actually not about me. It really isn't about me. It's the fact that I've been put on the earth to make this world better, to help other people, to be a restorer, to, like your teacher, speak into existence where somebody had believed, the worst or whatever.
Yeah,
something so powerful about that.
And can I finish with one last thought myself? And here's the thing. What if you could do one thing that would change someone's life forever? Mm-hmm. I was thinking about this, about these heroes, and I was thinking about David and how he's got a slingshot to chase away bears and wolves from the sheep, and he's never thinking anything more than, this is what I can do right now. It's what I do now. And then one day he uses that to defeat Goliath, and he plays his harp. Like, who plays songs to sheep? But he did, not knowing that he was going to write some of the most beautiful words that have ever been written in the book of Psalms. Joseph, he knows he's supposed to lead, so he finds himself in a prison, so he leads. He finds himself a slave, he leads. What if, wherever you're at right now, just think about this concept. What if wherever you're at right now, you could just do one thing, and that one thing could change someone's life forever? Yeah. Would that be worth getting out of bed for? I think it would. Yeah. And that's the heart of a leader.
Love it. Well, I think that's the perfect time to end. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have any questions, we do want to encourage you to go ahead and text us. You can text Table Talk to 905-937-5610, or feel free to direct message us on any platforms that we're on, and we'd love to answer your questions next month. Thank you so much for tuning in, and hope you have an amazing month.
You can lead well.